Regular Board of Education meeting on October 26, 2020 to order. Roll call. Ms. Cropper.
Mrs. Barber? Here. Ms. Choice?
Here.
Dr. Rasmussen?
Here.
Mrs. Taylor?
Here.
Dr. Heights?
Here. Please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, item 1.4, the safety briefing. For all 6 of you here, we have our officer in the back. Just do what she says in the case of emergency. We do have exits though on either side, and I think you can get out on either side in the front. Item 2.1, motion to adopt the agenda. Can I get a motion?
I make a motion to adopt the agenda.
Second?
I'll second.
Ms. Cropper?
Ms. Choice?
Yes.
Mrs. Barber?
Yes.
Dr. Rasmussen?
Yes.
Mrs. Taylor?
Yes.
Dr. Heights?
Yes. Item 3.1. We'll do item 3.1 to 3.4 in a consent fashion. Approval for the minutes of the policy meeting, the special meeting of September 17th, the Teaching and Learning Committee, and last month's regular meeting.
I make a motion to adopt or approve agenda items 3.1 to 3.4 as presented.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Any corrections, concerns? Ms. Cropper?
Ms. Choice?
Yes.
Mrs. Taylor?
Yes.
Mrs. Barber?
Yes.
Dr. Rasmussen?
Yes.
Dr. Heights?
Yes. All right. Correspondence?
Yes, sir, Dr. Heiss. I don't necessarily have a correspondence, but last meeting we had some difficulty with our live streaming of the meeting and took a couple of telephone calls on that. I want to thank Adam Samuels and also Steve Meese. It was a camcorder issue, and that has been updated for tonight, so hopefully the streaming works well. We did have volume last month. We just were coming in and out on the video, so I think everything is good, and I want to thank Adam and everybody else involved for that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, procedures for public commentary. I'm going to cut to the chase and just say you can read it there. We always welcome public commentary. On this evening, we do not have a lot of the public here. So, item 5.1, Human Resources Update. Mr. Broadwater.
Good evening, everyone. This is a quick review of the Human Resources Department, our side of the office. This is the month that we normally do it because we're able to reconcile all of our FTEs. So I'm going to go through a quick presentation. A lot of this, if not all this information, we presented to Ms. Choice and Mrs. Taylor at the HR committee meeting last week. But we want to go ahead and show the rest of the board exactly what we've had going on in HR. So the first slide after this one, we have the HR functions. Number one function is staffing. That's a large portion of what we do here at Forest Hill School District, and being able to develop the staff as well as hiring and maintaining the staff is our number one priority. Class size targets, I will show you some of those. Licensure and credentials. With everything that's going on with COVID, there's been quite a few changes with that, and we've had to adjust to that, but we're doing well with all of the licensure and credentials. Background checks, we still do those. We are limiting those quite a bit as we don't want people coming into the central office at this time, so we have limited them. Labor relations, as you know, we just went through and settled with our 3 associations, so that took up a lot of our time this previous year. Benefits through Swoosh, I will say that Alana Cropper has taken over the majority of that work, but we do help out with Swoosh. And then future planning in terms of where we see ourselves going with staffing and some of our strategic vision with that. The reconciliation of FTEs for the next slide shows that June of 2020, at the end of this school year, we were at 787.64 FTEs. We are currently at 777.15, which shows an attrition of 10.49 FTEs. I would point out that we have gone up 1.46 in food service and remind the board, in food service, that is not taken out of general fund, that is strictly gone through food service. So if we were to take away that additional 1.46, we're actually at about 12 FTEs that affect the general fund, if that makes sense. So we did a very nice job of being able to take a look at every position when it came to retirements, when it came to movement, resignations, the attritionary savings. All told, we were at about $900,000 with those FTEs that we've been able to reduce. So we were clipping along in great shape, and then we had something called COVID show up. But along the lines of what we normally do with normal business, I think we did a very good job of looking at each position. So the next slide, what I did was go back 5 years, just as a quick review for the board. You can see October of 2016, we were at 786.20 FTEs. We are currently at 777.15, so we are down 1.15. What I would ask the board to look at between 16, 17, and 18, that's when the construction was going strong. And if you remember, we added 12 FTEs in the kindergarten positions. So those 12 positions have not gone away, yet we are still down quite a bit. We're down about 11, I guess about 10, almost 10. But that's with the addition of those 12 kindergarten positions. So all told, that's been looking at a lot of FTEs and what makes sense with the attrition model. So all told, we are down 1.15% over the 5 years that I've taken a look at. With the next slide, the elementary staffing grid, I will tell you this looks beautiful, and this was our grid before COVID hit. We were excited. We did all the attrition. And if you remember, the green means we're 2 below class target size, and the class target sizes we've got on the right there for kindergarten, we'd like it to be at 19, first through third grade at 23, fourth through sixth grade at 25. So we were doing very, very well. We've got all green and blue up there, which is probably the first time since I've been here that we've had that. Normally you have a few yellow and a few red because of anomalies at different buildings. But that's where we were at the start. With COVID, obviously, we developed the virtual academy, but I use this as my staffing. It's an easier way for me to keep track where we are, because when COVID does go away, that's what we're going to be using. And the next slide is just a quick visualization. 44% of our elementary classrooms are at 2 below class size. 56% are at right where we want it to be, plus or minus the class size. For the virtual academy at the elementary, if you remember, we did have 2 staff members go to each grade level. We also added a substitute to help out with that. But in turn, the class sizes in our elementaries are still very, very good this first semester, and we'll be taking a look at them again second semester. Next slide. COVID-19, I thought I would just review real quick. We contract our teacher substitutes through the Comprehensive Sub Solutions, which is administered through the Hamilton County Educational Service Center. We have had many, many calls to the gentleman that's there, as has every other district, trying to figure out where we can get some permanent subs, some building subs, and they've been great to work with. And up to this point, I can say I am pleasantly surprised on how well it's gone up to this point. And I think we all know we're starting to move to a state now where it's getting a little bit tougher. But right now, we've done pretty well. The pandemic substitute strategy, what we did was the permanent building substitutes, we put 5 at each secondary buildings, so Nagel, Turpin, and Anderson. We had them find 5 permanent building subs. Those were not easy to find, but they have been able to utilize those every single day, so those permanent building subs are in the building every single day. At the elementary level, 3 is ideally how many we wanted them to find. We have some elementaries that we're only able to find 2. What we're finding is while we're using less, our staff has been awesome. We're using less sick days. We're using less personal days. They have really done a great job of working with our kids. The issue is the substitute pool is just not as large as it normally is. We just have some of the older retired individuals that help us out simply are not coming into sub. For the support staff, Here at Nagel, we hired 3 study hall monitors at Nagel to make sure that we can keep track of our kids. 6 elementary substitute teachers, like I mentioned, for the virtual academy. And virtual academy staffing is one that at the elementary, we've got a separate virtual academy. At Nagel Middle School, we've got a separate virtual academy. At the secondary level at Anderson and Turpin, it's really not a separate virtual academy. It's those regular classroom teachers may have 20 kids in person and 4 kids online. It just depends what that virtual academy looks like and how many kids signed up for that virtual academy. I can tell you that the stressor at the secondary level is high when you start talking about doing virtual and physical. It's a lot on our staff, but they have done a great job of adjusting to all of those expectations. The support staff substitutes, we hire our own support staff substitutes, so that'd be sub-custodians, cafeteria workers, anything like that. What we have noticed is there's going to be an uptick in overtime for the custodians. With every positive case that we have, we do bring our custodians in and we fog the area, we disinfect, sanitize the area. So over the weekends, if we have issues, we've got custodians in doing what they need to do. For the next slide, we do hold regular labor management meetings with representatives of the 3 employee groups. So we've got FHTA, OPSI 177, and we've got OPSI 273. We meet with them regularly, and like I said, we just did complete the contract negotiations. They went very, very well. I can tell you the associations work extremely well with this, and I'm very thankful for their cooperation in all that we do. It seems every single day we're talking nowadays because of everything that's going on, and they all work very, very well with us. And the next slide, the last slide I've got is the miscellaneous HR functions. You can read through those. As you read through those, I will tell you, lastly, we have reached the point where I told the board a few months ago my concern was substitute teaching and moving forward with everything. I think we are tenuous at best right now, just throwing out what I'm seeing with our buildings and with our staff. Right now, I believe we have 15 staff members either on quarantine or positive, which may not sound like a lot, but it affects a lot of kids. And so every day we're getting on, we're looking at where do we see where we may have some issues, work with those principals, and everybody has done just a fantastic job. If you would have told me at the start of the school, standing here tonight, it had gone as well as it has, I would have been super pleased. The staff has been unbelievable. I can tell you we're stretching everybody, the teachers, the custodians, maintenance, cafeteria workers, administrators, and they've all jumped on board and done a great job. And so I say thanks to all of them. And with that, I end my HR report unless you have questions. Yes?
I have a question. So I actually meant to reach out to you about subs before today, and I forgot. But I have a question about sub pay because I've had a couple of friends who have stepped up to sub since their kids are in school, and one of them sent me a note asking about pay because I guess we still pay $90 a day, and there's this website that lists the district by rate, and the lowest is $85 and the highest is $125. So my question was going to be, could that be some of the reason that we're struggling to get them, or are they really just not available? Because I think it paid $90 when I subbed like 15 years ago.
My initial reaction would be no. I think normally we don't have trouble finding subs because of the type of district we have and the support we have in our kids. Our permanent building subs and some of those other folks that are coming in every single day, that is an increased pay. I want to say that's 105. So the individuals that are here every day, we do increase, but it's certainly something that if the board would want me to look at, I would look at. I don't know if it is affecting us as much as we might think, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I mean, if she took the time to write me an email, I figured it must be being talked about. So it's worth looking at. Okay, well, you know what, I'll take a look at it, and I'll come back with a recommendation what we think might help. I'll look at the comparatives and see what's out there. Yep. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Next up, 5.2, Superintendent update.
Thank you. I'm moving here because I think it's obviously easier to see me. Before I get started, I want to pick up on where Mr. Broadwater left off. I can't tell you how proud I am to be part of an organization that has the staff members that we do, teachers, custodial staff, maintenance staff, our bus drivers, cafeteria, all of them, and I don't want to miss anyone, but I have to tell you that, just like Mike said, if 2 months ago you asked him or me, would we be standing here today in full session, we both probably would have said no. But I think our staffs have stepped up, and what we're beginning to see is some stress across the board in all of our employees. And so I want to thank them for all the work that they do and for everything that they've done. I think we also need to really be thankful for the administrative staff that we have in our school buildings and in our central office, and the massive amount of work that they're doing to try to help in this situation. And so I thank all of you for your work as well and everything that you've been doing. It's just been it's been a tough start, but we're doing quite well given where we are relative to some other places in the area as well as in the state. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit now about our second semester plan, because we, like all other years, are beginning to think about what's going to be happening in second semester, not to mention the fact that our high schools and middle schools aren't that far away from having kids start to make selections for the upcoming school year and begin that process of the upcoming school year. So while all of this is taking place, I assure you as board members and the community that we are doing everything we can to plan ahead and to be prepared to ensure that our students have the best cultures and the best opportunities in this area of the state. So when we return to school, I just want to show you this. We were making a lot of decisions back then. Are we going to return to school? What will it look like? So when we started school, there were 0 cases in our school. There were 124 in the zip code that we reside in, which was about 1.5% of every 1,000 people. Of Hamilton County, there were 3,400, approximately 3,400 cases, and about 60,000 in the state, and we were a county that was orange on the state health assessment chart provided by the governor and the state of Ohio. So when we put together our instruction at that particular time, we talked to the Board of Education. We had our blended model, and we used that as a soft start. But I want to remind everyone who's listening in that the blended model requires that your full staff be participants in that. So even though students are coming every other day, you need a full complement of staff because they are, in effect, working every day just seeing half of the students on a daily basis. So that worked pretty well for us, and we use that model in our kindergartens year to year, and it's a way to kind of acclimate students and staff to a new school year. And it really worked well for us in this particular model because it's a first time for all of us. We obviously have the face-to-face. We have a virtual model that we put together, and Mike talked about that. That's basically our 10th school with the same staffing that we have in the school district. As a matter of fact, an attritionary reduction of approximately $900,000. And still, our staff has stepped up and has been able to not accommodate, but serve the students of our school district. And we used our own staff when other school districts were purchasing online materials for theirs because we wanted our teachers with our students. And I think that's a significant difference that you might find in Forest Hills than other places, and I'm not speaking poorly of any place else. I'm speaking of the quality of staff that we have and the reliance that we place upon them to deliver to our students. And they've done a very, very good job. And they've picked up a lot of new responsibilities along the way. And because of that, we needed to hire extra middle school staff to do some coverages. We needed to hire a few more elementaries, and we needed to collapse half of our full-day kindergarten program to make this happen. And then we have a full remote option that we used last year to get us through the end of the year. And I think we all know that that is our least desirable option, but that's the one that is the most worrisome at this point as we watch the spiking across our state and nation. This is something that we are actually trying to avoid. We believe as a school board administration and staff that the best place for students are in our buildings. And so those were the 4 options that we had in place at that particular time. And obviously we are using face-to-face and virtual right now. There were 950 students. And I don't think a lot of people know that over time there's been a little bit of change, where some virtual have come face-to-face and some face-to-face have gone virtual. And I think that's where we talk about our counseling staff and the many things that they have done with principals to ensure that families and the dynamics that they have regarding education and their own worlds with work are being accommodated to ensure the kids can get the best education possible in ways that make sense for them and for their families. You know everything, board members, that we put into place. And probably rather than going through the list, what's important is to remind everybody that all of this has been approved, worked out, coordinated with our Hamilton County health officials. So we're not on our own here. We're actually working with experts in the local area to make decisions about the best ways to serve students and the safest way to serve students in our school district. So now the next slide is the 10-week recap. Here we are in our 10th week. And that 0 confirmed cases has now moved to 29 students and 12 staff members. So 41 individuals in our school system have confirmed cases of COVID. If you drop down now, that changes our 0 to 0.50. That's different. You also see that in our zip code area, it's gone up from 0.15 to 0.82. And you can see the rest, 1.2 in the county, and it's 1.62 in the state right now. So I had a very, very long conversation with our board president last Friday after attending our county superintendent Friday meeting, and I'm certain that all board members have been informed of our conversations, that our county is red with a star right now, which means 6 of the 7 indicators on the state's assessment are questionable. And I have reason to believe, and I don't want to make a negative prediction, but based on what I was told last Friday, I think this Friday we're going to shift from red to purple. And that's going to catch the attention of a lot of people in our community and in our school system. And so I've had conversations with my colleagues in the area, and it is an intense conversation at the superintendent level and the board level. I know board members are contacting board members from other school districts. What are you thinking? And in Forest Hills, our numbers still show that we are lesser than what you would find in the counties that we live in and the state that we live in. And the assessment chart, which says that you're not supposed to travel in purple and you're only supposed to do essential things, will be in question. And so our immediate conversation, beyond getting into second semester, is one that I wanted to have with you this evening as well. So if you go to the next slide, please. We all know about our exposure summary, and we don't have to go to it. But as I said, we have 29 students and 12 staff members, and 12 cases are in the high schools and 8 in the elementary. There are 584 students or staff that are quarantined at this particular point in time, and 14 members of our staff are not in the district, either with a confirmed case or being quarantined. Since October 23rd, when I sent a letter home to parents indicating that we were 30 people with COVID, and in 1 week we've shifted to 41, and we went from 0.37 to 0.50, this is becoming more concerning to me, and I know to the Board of Education. So what I want to propose this evening is that the board consider this response to what's happening in our schools. One thing that is troublesome to me that we haven't seen yet, 8 cases are in the district's elementary. One of our elementaries has lost a 4th grade team of teachers today. Nagel Middle School lost 3 of 4 team members last week on a single team. So we're beginning to see a little bit of a shift, not something that is of the emergency level, but certainly something to be continuing to pay attention to. So on Monday, November 2nd, which is coming up next week, our elementary schools already have a conference day scheduled in our school district. I'd like to propose that our high schools on that day go full remote so that there are no students in our schools. But we will have staff doing work. I'd like to propose then on November 2nd, which is election day, because there are no students in the school, obviously that would be a second day of not having kids in our schools. I'm not proposing that, that's the reality. And then on Wednesday, this is the proposal for the board, an additional one, to start a discussion this evening. I'd like to ask the board to approve a calamity day for COVID in our school district. And the reason I propose these things to the board is I'm seeing numbers change in our district. I believe kids should be in school. I think that our schools' teachers and staff need some time to regroup from what's been happening over the last couple of weeks. If you think about a teacher's responsibility right now with 584 students quarantined, many others with COVID, and their own teaching staff, some in grade levels, out of the building, the stress level is going up and up, and they're doing everything they can to manage that, and they will continue to do that. But I'd like to try to get a bit of time, a window of time, where there's a natural interruption, and that's the election, to say, let's put a pause on this, get the buildings totally cleaned. It helps us with some of the contact tracing issues that we're having with our high school kids because they won't be in the buildings. It provides our custodial staff with a break to be able to get the places cleaned, disinfected, sanitized without the traffic, without the people. It allows us, after an election where many people from our community, some with COVID, probably most without, will be in and out of our schools, and I'd like to be able to sanitize those areas and do it well, because those are, for the most part, elementary buildings in our school system. And then what I would propose is after that's over, we come back to school on the Thursday and Friday. We lean into it again, and we get ourselves as a school district through to Thanksgiving, because that would be another week in a few days. I've talked to board members about possible release dates and possible days when we have calamity. I'm not the type of superintendent that believes that you should surprise a Board of Education, and I don't think I'm doing that this evening. I've talked to some of you most recently today about having the need to give our students, our families, and our teachers and staff some relief, and I see this as a natural way to put that in, recognizing that it will impact families. The one day will impact families. The 4th. But so does a snow day when it comes upon us. This, at least, would be coming with some advance notice. If you go to the next slide, please, Adam. Second semester considerations. This was something that we have talked a lot about, board members have talked a lot about, and I provided a schedule for board members on communication, involving parents, and how we would roll this out into the second semester. But because of our confirmed cases and the comparisons we're doing for our students and for our staff, that needs to be considered in our second semester planning. The contact tracing that we're dealing with mostly at our high schools, some at our middle schools, are really, really negatively impacting our students, some situations our staff, and certainly families. It's a significant disruption for our students in grades 9 through 12 who give so much, who are so dedicated, their coaches are as well, their families are, a lot of resources, a lot of time, a lot of energy, and those additional things that are in their lives that complement their education. I think we need to work on some way to be able to provide a mechanism that makes sense for those families. Not a free pass like a Monopoly game, but a mechanism that gives them an opportunity to be able to protect that which is important to them, but in the same way be respectful to the main reason we're here, and that's education. So I think that's something that my team can provide to this Board of Education. It would require Dave and Rob and Anita talk with the ADs, Mike Broadwater, Greg Sears, sit down and come up with something comprehensive that can be presented to you that we believe would be helpful to our students and would not overwhelm our teaching staff, which is a key component of that. So that's something we need to talk about and we can bring to you. We're watching that county health commissioner and health official data information every week. The ICU beds, the number of people coming to the emergency rooms, the number of beds available in our county, those are all part and parcel to schools being in session. That transmission rate that was under 1.0 for a few weeks, I think last week, I don't want to put a number out, but I know it was well beyond the 1.0, well beyond 1.25, I think. That's important in our county, the level of transmission that's going back, the community spread. We have to watch that. We have to be mindful of that as we progress forward. Individual and family circumstances are changing just about as rapidly as education. I mean, when I say a calamity day, automatically people think, how can I take another day off of work? What am I going to be able to do? How am I going to make this work out? I fully recognize that, and I appreciate that. But there are other circumstances that families bring to us as a school system. We need our son or our daughter because of my job or my grandmother or whatever, and we're making those things work, and we should make them work. So in turn, with all due respect, when I approach the community or the board and say, we need to consider the other side of that conversation, I hope that, and I believe, based on the emails that I'm getting, that our parents and community are supportive of us. And we just don't do things willy-nilly. We're thinking through it as a team. Distance is really important right now. It is monumental, as is wearing face masks. Regardless of the conversation at our nation's level, we know that it works. Distance, face mask, hygiene, keeping kids away from each other physically so that they don't pass the disease. And that is also good for our teachers as well. We also have something to consider, and that is we have greatly reduced opportunities now to take our kids outside. It's getting colder, and so it's harder to keep things open, keep the fresh air, and giving kids opportunities to go outside for classes, not just for physical education. And I'm proposing that we do not rent our facilities out during the wintertime. And we've had conversations with our local officials on that, and that's about safety and security. That's not about anything other than that. It's about being able to keep these facilities sanitized so that we can conduct education in the daytime and make sure that we can keep kids in school so their parents can go to work. Next slide, please. So what I'm recommending also tonight is that we also keep everybody where they are. People who made choices in first semester about virtual or face-to-face, we'd really like to keep them where they are. You've heard what our staffing issues are. We're certainly not going to say to someone, absolutely not, nothing that you could say to us would change our course of action. But the plan we have in place right now is working from a health perspective, and what we're receiving back from our parents regarding instruction, absent a few anomalies that we work on very closely, it seems that things are working. And when we've needed to make an adjustment for a family or for a student, we've sort of done that organically without a lot of, fanfare. We take care of the kids and the families who bring them to us and entrust them to us. Obviously, that means our staff assignments would stay where they are. And so we'd have people staying in the positions they are. One thing that Mike didn't talk about tonight, our district has one FMLA staff member. That's unbelievable when you look across the county at the different configurations of staff and the other things that other school districts are working on. That tells us that our staff wants to be here. There are some that are home. We get it. We understand it. We respect it. We have one FMLA situation right now. So our people are taking this seriously and working hard on behalf of the board and these families. We will honor, to the best of our ability, individual conversations, but they have to be made at the principal's level. To make a bold statement in an open meeting like this of a yes or a no, when we all know that the individual conversations with principals are the most impactful, with the most information about students, that's where that decision needs to be made. I think in second semester we also need to consider the instruction relief options that I talked about on November 2nd, 3rd, and 4th that was up on the screen prior to now. To take a look potentially at early release dates, or maybe some days across the year where we do look at cleansing the buildings, where we do look at relief for students, families, and teachers and staff. And we continue October 2nd, October 9, October 23. I have been crafting and working with my team to send home communication that provides our parents with numbers, information, data about where we are, what we're doing, how decisions are being made. We need to continue doing that so that they are familiar with what's happening as best as they can be, and they can understand the direction that we're going. So a couple of recommendations that I've made this evening. Mostly what I would like to ask is that the board permit me to continue with this balanced approach into second semester with the things that are there, come back to you in November with a tighter, completed plan, because we have some movement taking place with virtual and with face-to-face. We had a virtual survey for feedback to parents. We're looking at that very closely. We're trying to protect that staffing as best we can that we talked about. And that we consider some relief options along the way that make sense. It is not time off. It is not throw everything and sit down and watch TV. Wellness is a big deal right now for all of us. We need our staff to feel good as best as possible, to be strong, to feel like they have time to plan, to respond, and to provide the best education and operational experiences that our kids can have. And the other reasons are up there for disinfection and cleansing the buildings. So I guess the first question would be for consideration is the board's conversation about November 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. and then to hopefully get your approval to continue moving forward with the plan that's presented here as a second semester plan, with all the parts and pieces that are in there.
Can you tell me real quick again, November 2nd, you said full remote for high school?
Full
Or all?
remote for high school. They're in school, they're just not at school. The elementary students have already got a day coordinated with parents and students that is conference related. So that day is,
So they're out.
right,
3rd, everyone's out for election day.
right.
Calamity day is the next day because of cleaning.
And just, yes, planning, cleaning, culture.
What does that mean for the students? Is that's out?
That
I'm
would
sorry.
be a calamity day where they're not involved in education.
Okay, so they would not have assignments and all of that kind of stuff. It's just like a snow day-ish?
That could change based on the conversation, but my recommendation would be to give them a break.
Okay.
Students are working hard as well.
That's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then back to normal, what we're currently experiencing now on that Thursday and Friday of that next week.
Put our heads down and get through to Thanksgiving.
Okay.
I think it's fair, at least in my opinion.
I think so as well. I think they're great ideas. I think the calamity days are needed for teachers as well as students. And I really, really appreciate that you're going to keep everybody where they are. Because if we start trying to move kids and move teachers, we'll be in big trouble. And so I think it's a great plan. It's much needed, especially the wellness for teachers, custodians, administrators. You just go down the list. So I think it's great plan.
A little perspective from a parent who will have 3 different people watching my kids on those 3 days. So, I get it. I get that the teachers need the stress relieved, but parents, especially ones like me who don't have many options, you're just transferring the stress somewhere else. So I'm just sharing that perspective. I don't have the answer, but my kids will be exposed to 3 other people those days.
I feel like Elizabeth as well, where I don't know what the right answer is. I completely understand that perspective. And yet at the same time, I also, I've heard from teachers over the last several weeks of, wow, I can't believe we're still in class. I never would have thought this, and sort of feeling that relief. And then those comments have shifted as the numbers have shifted. And in fact, just today I spoke with one who expressed just an overwhelming sense of anxiety and almost waiting for the shoe to drop on us as these numbers have ticked up. So I understand that they need that time and that ability to reassess the situation, and yet also absolutely feeling that parent stress also. And I don't know what the right answer is either. Either way, somebody is gonna take on that stress, as Elizabeth mentioned. Ultimately, I think probably we do need that break to reassess and evaluate and figure out how to go forward. So that's kind of how I feel.
Scott, we talked about that today, that we know it will be difficult for some parents. And I don't know how we even that out, because I'm sure, it will be difficult.
It is an excellent point, Mrs. Barber. It cannot be just set on the side, well, parents can figure this out. That's not, I don't think that what I'm recommending is a this or a that. It's a collection of the best thoughts in this room. We're not administrators versus boards or teachers versus, We are a group of people that are all trying to respond to a very difficult time period. And the comment that you bring up as a parent, and the same one that you have, Dr. Rasmussen, those are important things to remember when you're putting plans together. I mean, there's a whole group of people out there that we serve through their children. One of the things that I neglected to say was that I know that on Thursday, absent of something else that happens, 11 of the 14 teachers who are quarantined will be back, right? So that means we're down to 3. And what I know about our teaching staff right now, because of the substitute situation, is teachers are covering for teachers, and they're not getting that moment of just, and then the next group comes in, and then you're going to someone else's classroom to cover, and then you've got a quarantine group, and then, I mean, there's just, I'm not trying to overplay it, but I'm saying that teachers across this state are just flying right now. And as a professional educator who knows the culture of the classroom needs to be one of calmness to the best of our ability in a very difficult time, I'm searching for ways to make that happen without knocking our parent group on its ear and without causing people distress in their home. So that's all. This is all a conversation. These are recommendations. We all work together very well, very well. We can come up with decisions together. We'll put a plan together, and we'll communicate it to our families. I think that's what this should be about, actually.
I just had a thought. Does it have to be on that Wednesday? Could it be maybe the following week? The reason I'm asking that is because what really will make it difficult is that that's 3 days in a row, and it's next week. So, and it's the end of the year, so I'm imagining a lot of parents might not have much vacation time left. So if it was at least maybe another week later, and the teachers knew they were going to get an extra day off coming, it could just break it up, and then that would give parents at least like a 2-week head start. Just an idea. And I'm not asking for approval or anything, I'm just throwing it out there.
Well, I also think it's good that I have a lot of experts standing behind me. I'm not being disrespectful, I'm just trying to think about logistics of how it works. I know Richard Porter, our transportation director, reminded us today that now they're going into double time with folks because they have that many drivers out, and transportation substitutes are, it really does not matter how you elevate the salary, they are not out there. So that's another stressor that we're starting to have, and Mrs. Barber and I talked about that extensively today, and there might be some plans that we can work on to address some of that. The logistics of that aren't for a meeting tonight, but it's not like it's something we haven't discussed and we're not taking a closer look at. I know that Mike and I have talked about it, as well as John Eckert. It's just stresses right now that we're dealing with. Stresses to the system is what we're dealing with. Everybody has stress. We're not the only ones.
I don't know how to get around the, when my kids were younger, I'm the one who stayed home when we had, any kind of calamity days. I understand that difficulty, and I don't know how to work around that part. When I read this and saw you say it, I guess I'm thinking in my mind, if we can maybe do some mitigation that saves us from the back half of not being out from November through Christmas. Is it the right decision? I mean, I don't know, but I go, if I can see the relief, I can see the additional cleaning, I can see taking a break so that we kind of stop some of it, everything can come back. That's why I think it's a fair plan. I don't know how to get past the parents, because that's sticky. I understand that.
No, I mean, it does help when the high school's out at the same time, because those kids can babysit. But, like, again, it's still exposure, so.
Is that having the, it's a planned snow day, It's not the night before, which is an advantage, but it is, I'm with you, the 3 days in a row. I do like the idea, to Patty's point, and I was thinking the same thing, was the having, you know, presumably a gigantic number of people going through our elementary schools on election day. Gigantic number of people. Now I know all voting's up, but I mean, I think we're going to have a lot of people through our buildings on that Tuesday. And not that I don't know what the logistics are as far as cleaning and everything goes. I know we'll be working very hard on that anyway, but that's what struck a chord with me on the plan of doing it on that Wednesday, just because for our elementaries, you know, my overall thought on all of this is that our buildings, if you look at all the numbers, are the safest place in the entire state to be, is inside of our buildings. So I want our kids in our buildings as much as we can, you know, you can almost just from a safety standpoint. But on the other hand, the idea of, you know, I was thinking of just our normal elections and the number of people that we have come through. And now it's a presidential election. It's a huge presidential election. Granted, there's absentee ballots, I get all that stuff, but there's going to be a lot of people through. So that was the part that, I don't know, that kind of had me sway toward, you know, I was thinking 3 days in a row, could we do a day in a different week? With our thought process being is that, you know, my feeling is, one, everything I've heard is we're going purple on Thursday. What does that mean, though? And that's the big question. The question is not that we're going purple. The question is the state is doing similar to what we did when we started out. We were coming up with our plans, and then we've kind of modified them, and we realized that, you know, it's not bad here. Why would we do something that's, you know, if something's bad in Cleveland, why would we do something here? I don't get a sense that the state is, and DeWine is looking to set any mandates. I'm getting a sense, much like everything else, they're pushing it locally and letting us do what we think is best, which I think in some ways is a good thing, because we can do what's best for our little neck of the woods. So, but on the other hand, purple is purple, and the rates are going up, and to have 2 extra days off now to prevent going virtual this second week of November, you know, and we'll never know. I mean, I don't know that we will, but you know, it's some proactive planning as far as, you know, doing our best to, ironically, take kids out of school so that they can stay in school, which is I think our overall plan.
Forrest, what my point, or what I was poorly articulating, is that I do think this is the right move. I just acknowledge and hate that, you know, the parent stress and the just mitigating of the stress in general is something that we're going to have to just do, and it just stinks all the way around, but I think
the thing is, giving a snow day in November means that it's going to be 1976 in January. Those of you that remember, I mean, it was all that time. I mean, there's nothing that's going to bring more snow than if we start taking calamity days in November and December. But not that we could take that in, but it'll.
I mean, the last thing I'll say about it is,
we're putting studs on our tires. We'll be like, oh, that was us. I'm sorry, go ahead.
the last thing I was going to say about it is, I mean, I am so happy that we went back in person for the ones that wanted to go back. The school is thriving. The kids, I feel, are thriving. I mean, it's not normal, but it's pretty decent, and they seem very happy. My kids are engaged. Their friends are engaged. I don't want to go virtual. I just don't. I don't know that, you know, I don't have that choice individually, obviously, but if we can do anything to prolong the current situation and keep it going, I'm willing to try to do it.
Well, I don't want to give mixed messages to our community. I believe personally, like this Board of Education does, that our kids' safest place is in our schools. What I am sensing as a superintendent is right now, with the number of cases that we've just had in the last week against what we've experienced the first 9, is a lot of cases. And I'm trying to find a way to not increase that, to get our staff back in next Thursday with 11 coming back off quarantine, to have the facilities clean after the biggest election in my lifetime of people traveling through our schools. But then there's the dilemma that Dr. Rasmussen and Mrs. Barber bring up, and that is what do you do with elementary children when you're trying to accomplish these other things? Because that impacts the family. But I'm firm with the rationale of why I bring this to you, and I'm okay if it adjusts based on the needs of everybody that we have to serve. Because again, we have to work together to serve everybody. That's what we should be doing. So I'm firm that of my rationale, but if we want to somehow hold a day and maybe wait for another week and not just burn through a calamity day, not that it would be, that's bad terminology, but use a calamity day up already when there are just supposed to be a few across a year. I can understand that, but I feel strongly for the reasons that I bring this to the board, and certainly am willing to accommodate the board's wishes in any way, because I think you're in the same place I am. We just don't know how to get through this tough spot right now. So on the second semester plan, we've got some time to massage. On where we are with our increases in COVID in November 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, I think we need to coalesce on an idea here and make sure that we can get it out to our communities as quickly as we can, our parents as quickly as we can.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, I trust the rest of the board. I obviously have my own concerns for my reasons, but the sooner the better if we're going to do it. It's Monday, and we're talking about a week away, so this might be a time we just have to make a quick decision.
Absent of the increases we saw in a very short period of time, I didn't even have this as part of the conversation. I mean, I didn't want to talk about this tonight, but it's kind of come upon us as things are rapidly changing in this COVID environment. We're all trying to be as nimble and flexible as possible. So, without further, just.
I think you have a consensus.
Okay.
Agreed?
Well, we have a lot of experts here. I'm sure they'll come up with some great ideas. They're right here in front of us.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your consideration.
You good, Patty? This would be a.
Say it again?
Are you good now? This would be. Do you want to bring up the other?
Oh, the HR?
Yeah.
Now, we'll just go.
All right. Public comments. I don't have any cards, but I'm willing to see a hand raise. We good? Okay. Item, that was 6.1. Item 7.1, board discussion. Any items to discuss? Oh. Nothing like that.
I think that's what we just did.
Yeah, I think we did some board discussion there. Any other items that would like to come up? Item 8.1, request to advertise for bids.
Good evening. The item 8.1 is a request to advertise for bids for the cooling tower here at Nagel Middle School. We presented at the Facility and Technology Committee meeting some pictures and a video of what the issue is. Nagel was, the construction was completed in 1999, so we've got a cooling tower. It's about 21 years old. It had a 15-year warranty, so we've gotten 6 years additional out of much maintenance, and it's now time to replace that cooling tower replacement. The administration requests permission to advertise for bids for the stated project. The reason for that is It is a large piece of equipment that will have to be designed and fabricated and takes quite a bit of time, so we need some lead time. So it's for the Negle Middle School cooling tower replacement. The superintendent recommends the board approve the request to advertise for bids for the stated project. Any questions?
My question is, I don't remember seeing that on the permanent improvement schedule, the 5-year schedule.
No, it's a maintenance. It's something that we did not. The permanent improvement, we had the roofing and the asphalting. A lot of this equipment, we try and get as much use out of it as we can. It's reached the point where now it's time. So the roofing and the pavement, we've got a very good schedule on everything with that. But some of this equipment, when it is damaged or needs repaired or replaced, it's hard to predict when that's going to happen.
Okay, but you're going to use the permanent improvement funds
Yes.
for it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So then that has to get adjusted, that schedule?
Yes. Yes.
Got it.
Yes. Yep. Okay. We ready for 9.1?
Yes, 9.1.
9.1, the Human Resources Report. I emailed the Board of Education with Scott's Board of Information update, all of the items on the Human Resources Report, and we reported out at the Human Resources Committee the other morning. But if you look at a few of the items, item under 9.1, letter A, I would like to point out that we have 2 retirements of 2 teachers that have worked at Forest Hill School District and done many, many things for our kids here in the district. Sylvia Elam has 34 years in the district. Sylvia, if she was here, she would tell you that she actually taught in Newtown Elementary. She goes back 34 years, and she has done a fantastic job with our kids. She's teaching in the virtual academy this year and has done a great job, and we wish Sylvia nothing but the best on her retirement at the end of this year. Marcia Hayes is a special ed teacher at Air Elementary. She will be retiring at the end of this school year after 17 years, but many other years in other districts. And again, Marcia has done a lot for our students, and we wish her nothing but the best on her retirement at the end of this school year. I will bump ahead to the last few items, item H and item I. H is the home instructor, tutor, teacher aide, LPN, RN, student, and pool worker salary schedule for 2020 to 2023. It is recommended the board approve the salary schedule, and the exhibit is attached. The revised salary schedules, it is recommended, this letter I, it is recommended the board approve the revised salary schedules. The exhibits you have are supplemental salary schedule and the exempt salary schedule for the 2 employees that are moving to the exempt status as listed in item C. The reconciliation of FTE, like we showed in the presentation, from the 1920 school year to October 2020 has reduced to 777.15 FTEs. And with that, the superintendent recommends that the board approve the personnel items as listed. And are there any questions?
The only other question I had was that FTE by division, remember in all the classifications, will that be able to be done?
Yeah, what we have to do, yes. What we have to do, we don't have that as an Excel. It's in a file maker, and it's with a different software package housed not in our district. So I've got to get that. It takes a little bit of time to do it, but yeah,
Okay.
We'll get it.
Got it.
Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you.
Item 10.1, the HCCA contract. That's Steve.
Good evening, everyone. This is item 10.1 under technology. This is an amendment to the HCCA contract to bring the district up to a full 2 gigs of internet service. This is an amendment to the contract that we had previously. Are there any questions on this contract?
I think this was, we had the original contract, then we had an ad last month, and this is addition to that as
That's
well.
correct.
It's all covered by our COVID
The original,
dollars that we can use.
bandwidth that they wanted to provide, they couldn't provide, so we had to increase for an additional half-gig contract.
And all this, we do have COVID dollars to cover.
That's correct, we do.
Thank you.
The superintendent recommends that the board approve the attached amendment to the HCCA contract, service provider, internet services 2 gig as shown in the attachment. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up, item 11.1, Treasurer's Report. Ms. Cropper.
The first item on the treasurer's agenda are the donations received over the past month. The district received 3,850. Item B is the statement of board accounts, which presents all funds activity for our current fiscal year. Tonight's report covers the first quarter of fiscal year 2021. Item C presents the general fund, our 5-year forecast receipts for the month and the fiscal year to date ended September 30th. September was a moderate cash flow month as we expected. During the month, we received the final installment of our fall real estate settlement from the county auditor. At this point in the year, revenues are tracking as expected by the 5-year forecast, which was presented last May. Items D and E present the expenditures in our general fund for the month and the fiscal year to date. Expenditures at the end of the first quarter in our new school year show that we have spent 23% of our appropriations, with another 7.7 committed for future expenditures. So appropriations are also right where we would expect them in the 5-year forecast at this point in the year. The September 30th bank reconciliation and investments are presented in agenda items F and G. Appropriation adjustment details presented in agenda item H. There were no changes in appropriations for this month. The Anderson High School logo rebranding fund detail is presented in statement I. And the next two agenda items show annual transfer. Item J shows the annual transfer to the Workers' Comp Self-Insurance Fund of $150,000. And the item K shows the annual transfer from the general fund to our permanent improvement fund. Agenda item L requests to close the boxing student activity account at Anderson High School due to inactivity. And agenda item M presents the insurance rates for our employee benefit plan year. Our plan year does not run with our fiscal year. Our plan year runs on a calendar year. So these are the rates that will be in effect beginning January 1, 2021. I respectfully request that the board approve agenda items 11.1A through 11.1M.
All right, thank you. Any questions? All right, can I get a motion to adopt the consent agenda items 8.1 through 11.1?
I make a motion to approve action items 8.1 through 11.1 as presented.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Ms. Cropper?
Ms. Choice,
Yes.
Mrs. Taylor,
Yes.
Mrs. Barber,
Yes.
Dr. Rasmussen,
Yes.
Dr. Heights.
Yes. Moving on to item 12.1, Anderson Township Economic Development Committee report.
Nothing to report that's relevant to the schools. That committee is shifting its efforts toward Homerama, which is coming to Anderson next year. So I'll keep you posted if anything changes, but
That's over in off Ayers, is that?
it's off of Hopper.
Off Hopper, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Item 12.2, Finance Committee report.
We have not met, but we just scheduled a meeting on November 18th at 4 p.m.
Forest Hills Foundation report. Ms. Stone.
Good evening. The Forest Hills Foundation for Education Board met on October 14th, and we adopted new charters for our committees. That's Randy Smith did a lot of work on that. You know Randy and his procedures, so he spent a lot of time working on that, and we're really pleased with what he came up with. Things that are happening that the foundation has been involved with. I think Hope Squads kicked off today at Anderson, Turpin, and Nagel, and those are funded by the foundation, so we're very happy about that. Our all-in food drive was on Saturday. It was, as you know, we had to do it differently this year. We didn't collect food in the schools, but it was very successful. We filled a whole truck on Saturday, and we're just thrilled about that. I want to thank John Eckert for helping us and getting us the truck and staffed unload it. We appreciate that. And Mr. Spencer and Mr. Fellows both did a video for us, and all the principals put it in their email, their weekly emails. So with that, we collected 4,272 pounds of food, 704 pounds of personal care items, and 1,900 pounds of power packs. So we're going to be feeding a lot of people. And IPM is very, very grateful. And we collected over $1,000 in cash, too. So that's good work. Teacher grants is our next thing. Those are due in early December. So that information has been sent out to teachers, I believe. Greg? Yeah, that's been sent out. And lastly, Giving Tuesday is on December 1st, which will kick off our Year in Giving campaign. And this year, the theme, instead of We Will, is We Will Prevail. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dee. Item 12.4, Human Resources Report.
Yes, we met on October 19th, and it was pretty much the same information that Mr. Broadwater presented today. And of course, we all recognize how hard our teachers, our custodians, cafeteria workers, administrators, just going down the list, how hard they've worked and how much we appreciate all that they do.
All right, thank you. Legislative Liaison Report. Not a lot to report. Everyone's focused on the election. The big ticket items, ed choice, things like that are being kicked down the road. You know, obviously, any more economic incentives, we've all heard, or they come and they go, and they pretty much just go. So there have been talk about new incentives, getting schools more support. All of that is just being bounced around, but so there's not a lot to report there. Policy Committee report.
We have a group of policies here for the second reading. So did anyone have any comments or responses to these?
These were all pretty much Neola.
They were very, very basic. I don't think there was anything custom in this batch at all.
Do we need a vote then on that one? So,
Say anything about what our athletic kind of thing? Is that in this area for policy?
we could
separate?
that would be we can bring that up here, I think, because I don't think there's a better spot for it. So you want to take the lead on that, or?
I can read. So basically what it is the athletic policy. I don't have the thing in front of me to read, but basically it's not just athletics. It's anybody that would have a significant reason to perhaps self-quarantine. So the policy currently is you have to be in half-day school in order to participate in your sports and have an excused absence to make up the work. And so I think the thing is we cannot do anything right now. It has to just ride, but make sure people understand your child can go half day, still participate in an outside activity, be able to make up work, but the benefit would be you're kind of like blended. You're taking your day in half, and your exposure from a close contact, the contact tracing reduces. So that's what we have to offer that's currently already in the policy. And then what we're going to try to do is have the admin team for the second semester address this so that we can have something for winter and spring sports so that we can develop something that works with the teachers and the students so that if there is significant contact tracing, these kids that have outside activities are not all of a sudden, boom, they're out and they have no recourse. You're just done. And so this would maybe give them some ability to continue to participate in the outside without having to have the 14-day quarantine. That may be kind of clumsy. Is that the gist of it?
Yes, and I think that as you and I had talked, when we think about the second semester plan, this is an extension not only to athletes, but to all of the comprehensive programming that we have. So it's going to require some
Thought.
well, some focus to make sure that we get it right. But we are seeing across the county and state that contact tracing is the most significant in the school systems. We are held to a much higher standard than what you might find in the private workplace. As a superintendent, I'm not necessarily upset by that because I think it works with our safety and security. However, as a person who is a champion for kids, I'm concerned that it's hurting many kids by knocking them out of, again, those things that they believe are important in their lives in addition to their education. So our team will put that together as part of the comprehensive plan that we bring back in November. We'll have it outlined for you. Other districts have a form and a procedure and so forth and so on. I would be a proponent of something that would suggest if you're self-quarantining and your event comes to a close in the 6th day, you don't stay out 8 more when it's, so there's some of that needs to be worked out, and certainly our principals, along with those folks who are athletic directors, performing arts staff, we need to work that out. But yes, I agree with the concept, and I think we can make something available to the board. I know we can do that by the next meeting.
I hope that makes sense, and if not, certainly ask the district and we can make sure everyone understands what they're able to do at this time.
Our goal is to maximize our education process, and extracurriculars and co-curriculars are very important to that. So, Safety Committee report. There has been no meeting. We're being extra safe. Teaching and Learning Committee.
We have not met since September 28th.
Technology and Facilities Committee. We met on October 8th. We had a very good meeting where we went through the device and device distributions. We are there's some testing implications, change from a large to small group testing, and we're locking down browsers. We're trying to make it so that we can go through the technological issues of testing from home, especially as these bigger tests come through. Steve went through 3 grants that we have for purchasing Chromebooks, Coronavirus Relief Fund. It doesn't cover the whole cost, but it does help a great deal. Broadband Ohio grant. There has been device delivery issues. There's low inventory and delays. There's a nationwide shortage of devices. We're just getting in our July orders, I guess, are coming into November, the next month. And that's both just from a demand as well as a high demand, as well as a decrease in supply with some of the things. Obviously, many of them come from China. Yeah, there was a suggestion for going into the PI funding, which was met with much joy and some derision. But then we went on to the facilities, and we talked about the chiller. Again, it's a expected lifespan of 15 to 21 years. We're 21 years into a 15-year plan, which is something that we do over time. We don't replace things just to replace them, but sometimes we get up to the edge, and that was one of the questions on whether if it breaks, you just can't have school. And then we talked about portable chillers that come in at $75,000, or it's like $18,000 a month or something. So that quickly eats into it, and that's why we're putting things out to bid now. Talked about a bus purchase. We do have a $30,000 grant to use for bus purchases, and then there was energy. We get 3 propane buses from, where is that from? Beckjord or somewhere?
Company that the EPA is requiring that they donate buses.
All right, yeah, so they poisoned a bunch of people, and now they have to give us buses. So it's all good. And so we had a good meeting there. Item 12.1.
Quick question for us.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
That's okay. Did you say that you were looking at for Chromebooks, the PI fund, to be able to fulfill that?
No,
or did I mishear you?
no. The question was, yes, is if there could be so the technology, our technology department saying, well, if they had a PI fund that are part of a PI fund, then that would be money that could go toward all of our technology. And which is true. Our PI fund is also, though, as we see here, we have chillers and roofs and asphalt as well. So it's we've gone from, in the past 10 years, from having zero PI fund to now a PI fund, but it's how do we apportion that? And that'll be something we'll be looking at.
Dr. Heiss?
Yes.
We need to vote on policy.
Oh, sorry, I moved right along.
I'll make a motion to approve the changes to the policies as presented.
This is item 12.6. Do I have a second?
Can I second?
Yeah, you can second.
I'll second.
Ms. Cropper?
Mrs. Barber,
Yes.
Ms. Choice,
Yes.
Dr. Rasmussen,
Yes.
Mrs. Taylor,
Yes.
Dr. Heights.
Yes. Thank you. And now item 12.1, Forest Hills Teachers Association report. Ms. Lauber.
Good evening. FHTA report tonight actually just consists of two items. Our first one being a state issue and a second one district and student staffing needs here local. During the past month, we've had the opportunity to participate in several options within the state. And one of the biggest ones that's on the agenda for the local association to participate in is the work towards eliminating state testing again for this coming school year. And one of our big thrusts with this is being led by, we have a delegate for the state, and that's Chris Preston. He's a teacher here at Nagel Middle School. But one of our big goals with this is to make sure that as teachers here in Forest Hills, as fortunate as we seem and feel very regularly here in our school district with a great community and great students, but also is to take in consideration that all students in the state are not necessarily as fortunate. Students not being able to have remote access to learning right now and pass through the months, as well as looking at our own community and needs, and placing students in schools in this kind of situation is extremely difficult and stressing on not only teachers but on families and students. With that being said, we may be asking for the board to help support some letters and also working with our local state affiliates as we do that. One of that being here in Forest Hills, we have sent out communication where teachers and staff can actually just make direct connections with email directly to legislators and asking them for support on this, as well as we're doing a writing campaign. Secondly, within the state, I have the privilege of serving on behalf of the Forest Hills Teachers Association in our large state local, and I go to a weekly virtual meeting with Scott DeMar, who you had the pleasure of meeting here in February. And one of the things that happens during that session is a chance to listen and to participate with other state associations that are large locals. That means that are locals that have more than 500 members plus. And in that, I think one of the things that comes out for me is knowing that our staff here in Forest Hills is an outstanding group of educators. Listening to schools from Dublin to Hilliard to up north to Parma and different schools, and hearing what our teachers are accomplishing and doing is quite enlightening. It also is very inspiring to other school districts to hear me speak, I think, on the topic of having teachers that are fully committed and having a school board that's listening to their needs. And with that, I'm going to go to the second one, which is the district supporting the staff and students. Tonight, listening to Superintendent Preble speak, I know that that did not come lightly with his recommendations. And I know through the district advisory committee that's here within the district that serves with the association, that the discussion of being able to look at where our staff is and helping make sure we retain the overall needs of staffing. Mr. Broadwater and myself, Mr. Sears, we've all had a lot of time to discuss, as well as I know Alana's been involved in keeping our work staff stable, keeping it healthy, keeping it able to come to school every day, and being with the students in this community is essential. We're very lucky and fortunate. The numbers last week are alarming, seeing those kinds of transitions and the impact that it has. With that, we would like to make sure that we fully recommend and support the recommendations of the superintendent based on some of the immediate needs and being able to pause and reflect on those needs. As we transition into second semester, also taking into consideration the additional support that could be needed to keep school in session, as well as helping maintain the levels of work that's being required and asked of all of our staff. Additional cleaning, wearing masks. I know tonight I was speaking even that wearing a mask all day and talking with small children can be a little daunting. I think, Mrs. Choice, I wanted to thank you for taking the time and spending time visiting several of our schools. I know it meant a lot to the staff, and having you have the opportunity to see how that work actually is. And our kids are being very resilient, but also, as we know, the doors are going to start closing here, and it's going to get a little bit more difficult for us to be able to have students all day long without having places to take breaks and being able to kind of give our staff a place as well to take children outside. And with that, I'm just going to really, again, thank Superintendent Prebles, but also ask the board to take in full consideration as this so we can keep our staff in place. Thank you.
Bringing that up, I meant to bring that up when Scott was bringing up other things. Our virtual academy, I mean, our teachers in the schools are doing a fantastic job. I had the opportunity to talk with a person up north around Wilmington about their virtual, and they went with I can't remember, I told you whatever program it was, one of these bought programs. And this was a mother that was just beside herself how horrible it was. It was dealing with an outside company, a big company. You know, these people are in it to make money. No phone call. If phone calls go unanswered, there's no way to get through. They initially had tests or had content all the way that was prescribed all the way through the weekend. So on, you know, the kids think they're off on the weekend. They come back Monday and they had 2 days worth that they were behind. You can't, you know, it's all rote. So you have a hour class and you have to sit there and you can't do anything. And if you miss any of it, and when they called for help, they got, well, just watch the video again. They're like, no, the video didn't help. That's why I'm calling. It was just, and then I brought up kind of that we had our teachers teaching our kids in our schools, and we're mirroring what's going on in the building in a separate type thing, and just, I almost had someone coming down from Wilmington to get into that program. So, so yeah, just kudos to the teachers as far as, I mean, my kids are in the schools and they're doing a fantastic job, but our virtual academy, I'm hearing things from across the state that people are calling in to find out how we're doing it, because we're kind of the lighthouse as far as that goes on how to do it for a district like ours, but to take care of our kids with people that we have, and being responsive to their needs and being able to change with the needs. I mean, that's the biggest, everything we're talking about today is being able to be this nimble, trying to change as things change. Things aren't looking nearly as good as now as they did before. Hopefully that changes, but to the better. But we're monitoring it and working with it as we go through. So keep up the good work. I think it's great.
I have a question.
Sure.
Before you close, and I'm sorry to do this and extend the meeting, but as Donna was talking, this came to me. So back to November 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. On the 3rd, which is Election Day, the teachers are going to be in the building, is that correct? No. Scott?
It's out that day.
That's a work day, so they'll be on site. I mean, is that something we need to, again, I hate to extend this, but I mean, is it a good idea for them to be in the building during I know they'll be separate from the actual election process, but if it's a professional development day, is there the potential to have that be a virtual professional development day, or do they need to be in the building, or does Scott have any insight there? I need to zip my lips. That's also fine.
I could tell you that we have developed a direct route from outside straight to the election area, the voting area. So there's going to be very little interaction, if at all. They're just going to go straight to where they need to be. But it's a valid point. It's a good question.
If you don't have a particular position on this, are you okay with Mr. Broadwater and the association presidents getting together and talking about what the logistics of that day would look like, given the fact of the concerns that you brought up this evening. The point of it is to take advantage of that day. I know that our teachers will be working, whether they're here or not. And so I think if we can work the logistics out between those folks, that would hopefully meet the standard of people will be working, but we will also be protecting them from the whole reason we're having the days, to separate ourselves from the possibility of getting more COVID in our buildings. That's the purpose. And to get our teachers back, 11 of the 14 back for Thursday, without additional, which then adds to the sub-problem, which then adds to the stress of the teachers who are helping. I've gone a long way here to say, can I work with the association to make this happen?
Yeah, thank you. I don't,
Thank
that
you.
sounds great. I don't want to prolong this, but it just came to me and I thought, I probably should ask.
Less is more, Scott.
All right, no, that sounds good. I don't believe we're in executive session tonight, correct? So our next regular board meeting will be on November 23rd. I anticipate it will be a regular meeting, although I am reserving the right to change that. Part of what I may change, and this is a little bit more procedural, and is that we are allowed by the state to have a hybrid or we could obviously go virtual too, and who knows, I'm going to anticipate we're going to do it just like this, but there may be some verbiage that may be a little bit funny, and the reason is that I would like to have it so that if any one of us can't make the meeting, that we can still participate in the meeting by phone or however else, and fully participate, meaning vote and everything like that. The state will allow us to do that, but we need to just make sure that when we do the notice, we notice it in such a way that will allow that.
I will work with Bill Dieters to get the language taken care of, and I'll present that to you and the board, if not this Friday.
Okay, I just
soon.
for the next regular meeting.
Okay.
So I mean, it may be a moot point one way or the other, but I think having that so that if whatever comes up on Monday, whoever is impacted by it can still participate. So.
Okay.
Okay. Well, with that, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second,
Second.
Ms. Cropper.
Ms. Choice,
Yes.
Mrs. Barber,
Yes.
Dr. Rasmussen,
Yes.
Mrs. Taylor,
Yes.
Dr. Heights.
Yes. Thank you all for coming. Have a good night.